What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be talking about why crested geckos are without a doubt the best first reptile. So without further ado, let's get after it and learn something new. So the first reason that I think these geckos are a great first reptile is because of their handleability. Now these geckos are very good handling species, for one, because they're arboreal, meaning they climb, and that allows them to stick to your hands better and not want to jump on the floor like something like a leopard gecko would do, because they're a little bit uneasy about being off of the ground. And when you get a first pet reptile, usually you're not going to want something like a day gecko or a poison dart frog, which I know it's an amphibian, but we're talking about reptiles and amphibians in this video, I suppose. And those kind of animals are going to be more so to look at and not to touch. So if you want something that you can interact with and hold, then a crested gecko is going to be a very good choice for your first pet reptile. Now the next thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that these geckos do not require any extra form of lighting on their enclosure. Now you can set them up in an elaborate enclosure and put good lighting up there, but they don't need anything like UVB or any kind of special lighting to keep them alive like a lot of other reptiles that come out during the day would need. Being that they're nocturnal, they're never going to need a basking spot, and like I already said, they don't need that UV light to keep them alive and healthy. The next thing that I want to elaborate on is their diet. So here before us, you can see that I have two complete gecko diets that you can purchase that are commercially available for geckos from New Caledonia and other fruit-eating geckos. And they don't require insects because these diets are already formulated to be a complete diet. If you feed them insects, they will grow at honestly about 1.5 to double the rate that they would grow if they were just being fed these diets, but they don't need them to be healthy. So if you're someone who's a little squeamish about having insects in your house and you'd rather just give them these diets, then they will be perfectly healthy just existing on these. Now another thing that makes crested geckos great is they can exist at room temperature. So the island that they come from is called New Caledonia, and it's found off of the coast of Australia, and it stays just about room temperature all year round. The proper temperature range for a crested gecko is 68 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. So if your house stays between that temperature range, then they're not going to need any extra heat source. And if your house does not stay at that temperature range, then really all they're going to need is a small space heater in the room with a thermostat to just make sure that it gets up to about 70 degrees minimum. And that's going to keep them perfectly healthy. So you don't have to worry about any of the dangers that come with having a really hot heat lamp or anything attached to the cage to up the temperature that you would with something like a bearded dragon, which requires like 100 to 110 degree basking spot. Another great thing about owning a crested gecko is that they can be set up for very cheap. The enclosure here that I have for my crested gecko birria is about $20 in cost to me, which is very, very small. Most other reptiles that you're going to set up are going to run you about $100 for the setup alone, and things can just get expensive that way. But like we already said, these don't need any extra lighting or heating, so that's going to keep costs low already. And setting them up in a bin enclosure like this is actually preferable because, as you can see, it's a little bit opaque here, and it will actually make your gecko feel a little bit more comfortable if they're found in an opaque enclosure, because they can't see everything that's going on outside in the environment. Now, I've taken y'all over to a terrarium that I have set up with a bunch of moss and things inside, and it's not actually for a crested gecko, so don't use this as an example for something that a crested gecko would live in. The only similarity here is that it's a humid enclosure, and it also is very tall instead of being very wide. That's what a crested gecko would need, but overall a crested gecko terrarium would look different than this. But what I'm getting at is that you can set them up in a very elaborate naturalistic enclosure if you would like to, and this will keep them on display, and it will look very cool if you have it out in a room or something for when people come over. And like we already said, the crested gecko is a handleable species. So you can also draw the attention to the fact that you have this cool animal, but then you can also still get it out and handle it. So the fact that you can set it up in a very naturalistic, interesting looking enclosure like this, or a very cheap $20 bin setup, is very versatile and is another reason these are a great first pet reptile. I hope y'all enjoyed this video on why the crested gecko is the best first reptile for you to get. I've kept many other species of reptile before, beginner types and advanced types. I've had poison dart frogs and different things like that. And again, I know that's an amphibian, but we're talking about reptiles and amphibians, I suppose. And I still love crested geckos as one of my all-time favorite reptiles that you can have. They're just awesome to interact with, and they're really easy to take care of. And if you want to get into something like this, they're also very easy to breed. And that's just a really fun way that you can kick up the hobby a notch or two and see what else there is to offer. So thank y'all for watching. Stay tuned for more videos like this, and please like and subscribe and comment something down below. Peace.